Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of Talking Picard, right here on the Escape Pod Castaways network. I am joined, as always, right below me with Neil Andrew Eyre, my co-host during the Escape Pod cast. Say hello, Neil.
Hello, Neil.
And, and then, as always, the third person of this panel, we have Thaddeus from Going Nerdy. Good to have you over on our side this time around, Thad.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm glad to be
also joining us for Talking Picard this season is my better half. She is more of a Star Trek fan than I am. And, Mrs. Anthony, Krittikae, Christy, whatever you guys want to call her, she'll be joining us. Say hello. Hey. Hey. All right. So, guys, welcome in. And so, what do you want? Where do you want to start, Neil?
Why didn't you start?
All right. So we started off with a, we got ourselves another recap, kind of like we did Mandalorian, where they gave us a recap of the previous episode, previous episodes, where, of course, we have one episode to go back on where we see that Picard's being interviewed by this news reporter and asks a question that she promised she wouldn't ask. And then we get the whole story of Daj and how she tracked down Picard and then got spit on by a enemy Romulan and blown to bits.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found out there were two of them. And the other one's on the other thing, on the Borg cube.
Yes, that is correct.
Yep.
I was like, did I lose the sound?
I know. I was hoping Neil would pick up from there.
Okay. So we're into the next episode, and the next episode gives us one of the things I complained about regarding the last episode, which was kind of giving us a bit of a narrative regarding what exactly happened on Mars, and it was very good. It was very precise, and now we know from that clip that the discussion from the episode 1 regarding what happened on Mars has been clarified, in that we now know that there was a bunch of synthetic humans, all bald for some reason. I don't quite understand the baldness, but hey.
Because it's fashionable, Neil.
Because
it looks good on most people.
So it looks
Everyone looks better bald, Neil. Everyone.
So,
yeah. I don't have to shampoo anything. Well, sometimes I shampoo my beard, but that's.
So we learned that we learned that there's lots of synthetic humans working on Mars in tandem with a bunch of Starfleet engineers. We also know that it happened on First Contact Day.
Yes, it essentially 4th of July for the U.S. or
Which
Australia Day for our Aussie friends, or
so this attack occurred on a national, basically, for all intents and purposes, a national holiday. So skeleton crew, which kind of makes sense if you're trying to plan an attack on something. So we see a very, very brief clip of one of the androids' eyes flickering, which kind of indicated to me anyway that they were hacked. Given orders from some nefarious location, and then that hack caused them to turn on everybody and basically destroy the base, and then that was it. Back to the regular scheduled programming.
Can I ask a question here about this, though? Because this is what left me confused. Were we seeing one incident of what all of the androids were doing, or was this the only android that actually did it? Does that make sense?
No. There were. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say there were multiple androids who, according to what they were saying, that did this. I mean, there were ships that were firing upon the base as well. So I would believe that they would have been piloted by androids. Am I right, Neil?
Yeah, well, in the episode itself, you can hear over the loudspeakers and over the tannoy system, over the comm system, that they were saying there were reports of multiple synthetic humans, turning on people.
Mm-hmm.
Actually said it. I overheard it in the episode. You can actually hear it in the background because everybody stands up when they say, "What are you doing?" Then they start hearing it over the comms. That there's been major malfunctions. Androids are turning. So it happened simultaneously to all synthetic humans, all on the surface and in ships above the surface of Mars. They were all given. They were all hacked at the same time, and they were all given orders or a code. I'm assuming it would be some kind of code to attack the base and destroy it.
Maybe an order, maybe 66.
No, it was 8. It was 8. Order 8. Because that
was F8.
Isn't F8 the function key on your keyboard to restart something?
No,
I feel
it depends on the motherboards. F8, F10, or F12 will get you into your BIOS at startup.
Yeah, and Alt F4 closes something. F5 refreshes the page. F11 gets you help. I wonder if F11 was their
We're just smashing F11. Come on, come on. Now, one thing that I will say that I really thought was cool in this opening scene was the treatment of the humanoids. How there were some that treated them casually, like their buddy, but still treated them with lesser, treated them as lesser beings. And then you have someone who's there was definitely some animosity there. Before all of that took place, right? It was just we dislike synthetics. But then you juxtapose that with Picard in his connection with Data, or Data, I don't know. Data, my bad. Sorry, don't be kill me. But it's it's a very different relationship.
They
right?
took our gerbs.
And it could have been hey, you laid off all of our friends and replaced them with synthetics, and now we're pissed off about it. But I loved how that is connected so far in the story. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, we get that, and then we get the then after that we get the instant flash forward over to well, first off, F8 then commits suicide. So he pulled an F4 as I was going to make the joke.
Sorry, I ruined your punchline.
It's okay. After that, we end up flashing. We get the opening credits, and then we get the talk of Lanai, and Picard, and I forget the brother's name.
I don't remember either.
Other Romulan person.
Other Romulan guy.
Pointy ears fella.
Yeah, I don't think that they've done a good job in introducing the characters and making you learn their names like they did Riker and Worf and all that from Next Generation.
Yeah, I agree.
I think so, because they have Scottish accents.
Not very memorable names.
No.
Definitely not very memorable names, but we do we then jump into where they're starting to talk about the Tal Shiar and the Zat Vash. And you're quite the historian about the Tal Shiar. What can you?
I'm not a historian.
You're not a historian. Nev, do you have memories of the Tal Shiar from previous series?
No. They're
The
talking
only
about no.
Romulan thing I can think of is in the alternate timeline, the Romulan destroyed Spock's homeworld, and that's what created the timeline, like the movies.
I mean, they did. She did say that it goes back 1,000 years. So going back 1,000 years would technically return to canon. By saying something, this is something that occurred within the Romulan Empire 1,000 years ago, you would be able to, by going back that far, you would be able to pull from canon. So it might be in canon, it might not be. It was very, very vague. So I'm not 100% sure on it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't profess to be an expert on all Romulan stuff.
Well, apparently the Zat Vash hate droids. That we understood. And
Spacist.
Yeah, space xenophobia, if you will. But then as they're talking, we flash forward to this whole talk about investigating this crime scene where it happened. And, to me, it felt like CSI Romulan. I just waited for her to put on some glasses and the Who to chime in.
Who are you? Who?
But during this whole CSI Starfleet, we get the first of something that kind of upset you, Neil.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, Neil's upset.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can understand why he's upset, and we get an F-bomb in a Star Trek show.
We got a Scottish F-bomb.
Yeah, that's true. That was surprising. I will say that kind of threw me off. I mean, I've been watching a lot of random stuff on YouTube and Netflix, and so I'm not surprised by it in a streaming service, but I wasn't prepared for it with Star Trek.
They did have one in Discovery as well.
They had a few in Discovery. They had the 4-letter word for stuff.
Well, no, Tilly said F.
Tilly's dropped an F-bomb.
She was so excited.
And Ash dropped a few S-bombs.
And then Stamets immediately turned around and repeated it. He said, "It is."
So yeah, I mean the profanity kind of irks me because it wasn't, it's nowhere to be found in old canon because the old the canon stuff was considerably more family friendly. So yeah, the profanity does don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm averse to profanity in any TV show. I'm just, it was unexpected in Star Trek. This one,
yeah,
because this has been built up to be in the vein of TNG, and yeah, the TVMA stuff. It's kind of, I was like, I wasn't appreciative of the TVMA rating for Discovery, which is probably why I didn't move on to season 2 from season 1. But I kind of, yeah, it irked me a little bit. Threw me off.
Yeah, it took you out of the thing. What you got?
I just wanted to let you know that the Tal Shiar were mentioned in one episode of Next Generation and one episode of Deep Space Nine. The Jalvat, I can't say that right, was never mentioned before Picard.
Okay, so the
Romulans are secretive. Ooh, secret.
The Zat Vash or Zat Vash. The Zat Vash were not. This was the first time we were introduced to the Zat Vash. I thought the Tal Shiar played a bigger part in. It might have been. I thought they played a bigger part in Voyager, but I must be wrong.
Well, just not by name, at least.
Okay. All right.
How would they be?
The name sounded very familiar.
Delta Quadrant. There aren't Romulans in the Delta Quadrant.
They could have been pushed there too. I mean, there was a lot of things that shouldn't have been in the Delta Quadrant that were. Yes.
Although I actually just watched that episode of Next Generation. It's because they went through a wormhole.
Of course.
I figured that out. I was proud of myself.
So after we get the CSI style crime scene investigation, they figure out that the sister that was alluded to in the first episode, that we were introduced to at the end of the first episode, is not on Earth. She's off-world.
Yes.
And then they cut to the sister, who is sleeping with the bad guy right away.
Cliche.
Well, hold on.
Sleeping with
Okay,
the enemy.
That Romulan is a handsome man, and
I am not denying.
We don't know what other men are there on this station.
Yeah, there could be some very slim pickings on that cube.
Yeah. I mean, this could be the only man there, or like the only relatively attractive man there. And so
two hot people get together, cold of space. Nothing much to do. No pubs, no bars, no clubs. It's understandable that a couple of good-looking people would get it on.
Yeah.
Is this the reverse of Alaska?
Yes, but
I mean, the other female's Trill that we get introduced to later on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
I
don't have any issues with that because Kirk. I mean, Kirk was a notorious womanizer. I mean,
Oh yeah.
So the fact that a couple people were hooking up this early, it just that's old hat for Star Trek. I mean, come on.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, fine. We'll give her the Kirk pass for sleeping with him.
She
right
gets
away.
the Kirk pass. She gets the Kirk pass for sleeping with the enemy.
We
'Cause
also
Kirk
don't know
did
what
it.
her programming is. She is a synthetic here.
Yeah, but she's not been activated.
They both had their underwear on.
Yeah,
They're doing things wrong.
That's true.
From
That's
what we
true.
know,
It's
she's
rated
not been
TVMA.
activated yet.
No, seriously though, that made me think of in Austin Powers in the second one when he realizes that she was a fembot the whole time, and yeah, that's all that was going through my head during that scene. It was like, she's a fembot.
She's a fembot. So yeah, she gets the Kirk passes. Yeah, she gets the Kirk pass.
All right. So, there's tons of questions. I'm just gonna move on. We find out that they call the Borg cube the artifact. So we learn the artifact. It is decommissioned. It's apparently cut off from the rest of the Borg. So we get that much.
Was it from one of the movies? Wasn't there a Borg cube that tried to attack Earth? I'm picturing that that's this cube, but I don't know if we have any frame of context.
We probably will find out. Maybe the plot hole will be revealed. But of course, that's the original canon. This is the prime timeline, according to Neil.
Mm-hmm.
We then get Dr. Benayoun, his doctor, played by David Paymer, who Christy loved in Oceans.
He was the hotel reviewer. It was funny.
Do you have any?
Oh yeah, that
yeah.
Yeah.
It threw me off. Like, I saw that guy, I was like, I know him from, and then I thought more about him, like, everywhere. That guy's in so much stuff.
Yeah.
So
I don't know his name.
I used to do an old podcast called Movie Review Roundup or Movie Rental Roundup, and we used to hand out the Patrick Warburton Award because Patrick Warburton was in everything back then.
Yes, and he is quite possibly my favorite person ever, or at least voice actor.
Dr. Benayoun then tells Picard that he has a terminal disease, essentially pretty much telling him he has a terminal disease, and that it does cause outrages like the one that Picard experienced against the reporter that asked the question that they promised not to, once again. But then...
Yeah, but I wouldn't have put that down to disease. That was just him being triggered.
You know what? I entirely agree, Neil.
Yeah.
I absolutely entirely agree. But we were told that Benayoun served with him on the Stargazer. You had information about the Stargazer, right, Christy?
Yeah, so there was a Next Generation episode where they come across the Stargazer, and some Ferengis are like, hey, look, we found the Stargazer. Don't you want that back? And they actually use it as a trap for Picard. And one of the major plot points of that episode is that they have a thought control device that they're using. Actually, the captain of the Ferengi ship is using to torture Picard because he blames Picard for his son's death. So there's like a whole mind control element where Picard was reliving the last experience he had on the Stargazer and also second guessing his decisions, thinking that maybe he wasn't remembering things correctly. It was very like mind warping.
Mm-hmm. I think what's interesting too is that the information that we got there is setting up for kind of that trustworthy narrator. Do we trust Picard to do what he did, right? Or to believe? I mean, do we believe Picard, right?
Or is he compromised?
Or is he compromised himself? So I'm curious to see where that goes. Also, if he dies at the end of the first season because of some sickness, I'm going to be a little pissed off. I mean...
The show's called Picard. I think you're safe.
Or is Picard going to have a symbiote twin or a synthetic twin? That's also a fear that
they could continue the show with another name. They did it with Roseanne.
Oh, so help me. If he is an android after all this time...
No, you've missed the point. He's not an android. He's actually
John.
No, what's that guy's name? John. No, not Dan Aykroyd. The guy who's Roseanne. John Goodman. That's
Goodman.
who he is. Yeah, Picard is actually John Goodman in a skinny suit. So,
Okay.
sorry, off topic.
You broke Paul.
Yes.
Yeah, I get broken at least twice a show by this guy. That's why we loved it. That's why we love Thaddeus. He. So the Stargazer apparently does have a lot of history. It'd be interesting to see if he gets it back.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets the
If the Stargazer comes back, or did they blow it up?
I'm not sure.
She's gonna look up. She's gonna do a little research for us.
I thought that they like hauled it away for storage.
Don't think they would have kept a Starfleet ship in service for that long. I mean, it would have been 30 years ago. So the ship probably got decommissioned decades ago.
I mean, okay. Let's look at the other franchise that we talk about. How long has the Millennium Falcon been around?
Yeah. I mean, I could see this being a decommissioned ship that comes back into some
We get a ship
form.
We see them on a ship.
Stargazer's a government ship. Millennium Falcon's a private ship.
But based off of that, and I'm going to go a little political, we do know that government gears run slowly. So it's very possible that it could be in line to be decommissioned, but they just haven't gotten to it yet because bureaucracy.
Or they could have sold it off instead of decommissioned.
That's also true.
Could have been sold off.
Yeah, in the episode, they were using a tractor beam to kind of drag it along. They were going to take it back and let it be a museum or something. I think Picard had some ideas for. They don't specify it clearly at the end after they destroy the mind cube. And the Ferengi first officer basically declares a mutiny against the captain. But I would assume, just from the way that Picard had been talking at the beginning of the episode, that they probably took it back to a spaceport to kind of like turn it back into Starfleet.
Okay.
It wasn't one of the ones that they overtly destroyed, because I'm rewatching Next Generation, so I'm going to have a lot of references. But I did just watch the one where they got trapped in the debris field of a 1,000-year-old war, and it was a booby trap, and they had to essentially turn off the ship, and Geordi was flirting with his little holographic girlfriend there, and they destroyed the ship that they came across, that relic, because it was like entrapping new ships.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. After the whole talk about the Stargazer, Picard decides to go ahead and return to Starfleet, and So strange enough, and while I was rewatching the episode right before the show just now, you had a theory on this, Neil. Why doesn't the front desk know him?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was thrown in there for comedic value because, to me, cadets going through Starfleet, would be given lessons on, all the big names and all of the big faces within Starfleet. So for a Starfleet cadet that would have gone through their training and they'd be sat on the front desk now to not know who, like someone like Jean-Luc Picard or Kirk or Spock or the big names within the Star Trek universe seemed a bit unrealistic, and I think that they were going for a laugh by having that guy at the front desk not recognize Picard, because Picard was like, "How do you not know me?"
A second theory of that, there might have also been like some pettiness to it, because as we're about to talk, as soon as he walks into the Admiral's office, she kind of rips him a new one. Yeah. So maybe she instructed her front desk staff to just give him a hard time.
Yeah, pretend you don't know him.
Yeah.
No fanboying
make him
with
feel
Picard.
unimportant so that he walks in kind of wrong-footed.
Yeah, office game, I could see that.
Mm-hmm. Office politics.
He went to Admiral Kirsten Clancy asking for a ship. Kirsten Clancy asking for a ship, and basically she shot him down. But this is the one that really took you out of the entire show, as far as immersing yourself in it, Neil.
Yeah, I paused it and messaged you.
A flagrant F-bomb.
Yeah, really, really visceral. I mean, it wasn't like in jest, which I'm still not excusing. I'm not excusing the Scottish F-bomb, but it was swiftly moved along from. So but it was looking into the camera. Well, not looking into the camera, looking at Jean-Luc, and it's like, and I'm just thinking, what? Just no, come on. Was that absolutely necessary? You could have expressed your anger in a non-TV MA way.
Yeah.
So that really, I mean, the first one irked me. That one really, really pissed me off.
Yeah. I'm working and I get a message from Neil, Thad. I get a message from Neil. Let me see if I can find it here. So what did you think about this whole Kirsten Clancy Admiral thing?
So, are you talking to me or Mrs.? Oh, so this is the moment that I thought we were talking about. I think I missed the original Scottish F-bomb. I was probably just so entranced with the accent that I missed it. But like this is the one that totally threw me off, because I was like, whoa, holy cow, there's the F-bomb. Now, as Neil and I have talked about, we have clearly watched The Witcher. So F-bombs don't bother me, but like, and I was not prepared for it here. Now, what's interesting though too is her reaction to the asking for a ship. It is, I mean, you have some sway. I mean, even Jean-Luc Picard, even though he's set up for this, he left kind of on unceremonious terms. Even though he did that, you still have some pull in a government agency that you've spent so much time in, and you have been essentially the Jean-Luc Picard of this era. And so for her to react that way, so viscerally and angrily, it was shocking. Like it threw me off, and I feel like there's more within that relationship that they're going to and need to explore throughout the rest of the season, and then maybe even series. But it does give us like later on, it does tell us a little bit more about her reasonings behind that. So I don't know. I was shocked by it. I was like, whoa, holy crap. But yes. Yeah,
the Scottish, just for quickly for Thaddeus, the first F-bomb was from the Scottish actress playing the female Romulan was fecking.
Oh, see, that's
Feck.
why I missed it.
Scottish version of the F-bomb is feck.
Okay. See, and I thought that was just a Star Trek swear.
No. It's a Scottish thing. It's a bit like Battlestar Galactica. It's frag.
Yeah.
Frick.
Frick.
Yeah.
Frick? I thought it was frack. Anyways.
Well, we're not a talking Battlestar Galactica channel, so we'll have to ask Dwight from The Office. Beats, Bears, and Battlestar Galactica. Do you have any comment on the
Admiral?
On the Admiral?
I think that it might be intentional. I feel like with Discovery and now with Picard, they're really trying to take something that we know and turn it on its head. So with Discovery, you had the Klingons looking vastly different. It was kind of like its own thing. It was rewriting some of the backstory of what happened with the war. Now with Picard, I feel like they're taking one of the entire franchise's most popular characters. I think most people have at least a positive impression of Captain Picard. And they're taking him and dropping him into the future that we haven't really hung out with him in 20 some years. And we don't know what's been going on in his life. And I think a lot of people would feel like he's just going to pick right back up and captain a starship and everything's going to go back to Next Generation, what it always was. And I think that they're saying quite strongly, no, this is going to be different. This is not what you expect. You, like people who grew up watching Star Trek and enjoying it, you're 20 years older, you're in different places in your life. We're going to show you where Picard is in his. And we're not going to mince words. We're not going to sugarcoat the reality he's living in.
Yeah. And I think that's I like that. I'm not a diehard Star Trek fan. And so for me, seeing a character aged appropriately, I think is a cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a dangerous thing to do too for an established fandom like this.
Yeah, it's a risk.
Yeah.
It's we'll see if it pays off. As for me, like I basically throw a dart at a dartboard full of like ridiculous fandoms, and I will be that fandom. I love everything, and of them, this is one of my top 3, and it just depends on the day as to if it's top place or second or third. But I have loved Star Trek my entire life. I grew up with Next Generation on TV. My dad would watch it and I'd watch it with him. And like, I can't tell you how many times I've rewatched the entire series. There is nothing that will make me turn this series off. Like, I am on board for whatever happens to Picard. I am there for it.
Neil?
Nope.
Well, I laughed.
Jury's still out. Jury's still out.
Still out.
Jury's still out. I'm not happy with the TVMA. I think the TVMA is unnecessary. They can put their different slant on it. They have to. I mean, they do and they don't have to. I mean, they started making Picard before the Star Trek IP came back under one roof. So when they were conceptualizing it and when they were coming up with it, it was more a case of, well, we've got to stick with the Prime. We have to stick with the Prime storyline, which we all know is 25% different. Bad Robot, in order to do the reboots of the movies, had to do everything 25% different for contractual obligations, which is perfectly understandable. And then obviously we got Discovery in the Prime line, and now we got this in the Prime line. But the thing is, because everything is back under one roof, it doesn't have to be 25% different. So I mean, I'm kind of hoping that they might, as it gets further and further along, maybe fan feedback will be like, hey, that the fans are still watching it, but they're not appreciative of, maybe some of the fans are not appreciative of the TVMA. Let's roll back some of the TVMA and make it TVPG perhaps, or PG-13, make it more family friendly.
Or even just put it back on TV.
Yeah.
That won't happen though. I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, because
They
the
need to do
stream.
something to make people pay for All Access.
Exactly. The
It's
streaming
like-
services are the way that it's going to go.
Well, I mean, fingers crossed Seth MacFarlane. Come on, Seth. Off. Fingers crossed Seth MacFarlane, the ultimate Star Wars fan.
Kickstarter?
Sorry, the ultimate Star Trek fan gets
Yeah.
the rights from CBS and reboots the entire franchise.
Well, Seth
That-
MacFarlane, of course, was in an episode of Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
I
Was
think
he
was in
really?
two.
Yeah, he was. He was in Enterprise.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Seth MacFarlane is to Star Trek what Simon Pegg is to Star Wars. You know,
Alright.
you're yeah.
And Simon Pegg was even in Star Trek.
Yes,
You know,
I gotta say,
even though he hated the Phantom Menace. I'm sure.
this series, it so far is like checking one box that was always a sticking point for me. I've literally watched everything except for animated series. I have discussions with Paul about that, but
I have it on DVD.
I know. One of the things that did bother me about the original series, the movies that came out after that, it always just lumped the same characters together. And as they were getting older, like Kirk was an admiral and then a captain and then an admiral and then a captain like 17 times. And he always had the same crew. Like they always just banded together. They got the gang back together and went out. And this episode, Picard very clearly said, I'm not getting the gang back together. I
Yeah.
loved that. I was like, yes, I love LaForge. I love Riker. I love Worf. Like, sign me up. I want to see them cameo, but I want them in and out. I want new characters. I want new adventures. I don't want to watch new episodes of Next Generation. I want something different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd agree with the cameos. I want the cameos. I want them cameoing. I don't want them in every episode, but I would be very appreciative of the cameos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, based on what we've seen, though, from like the extended trailer after episode 1, it does seem like a lot of characters will show up from different areas of the galaxy, you know, from different eras of the films and the TV shows, which I think is neat. But what role will they play will yet to be determined. And I do like how they might bring in old players who have a history, and then maybe even some new players who people like myself who have never sat down to fully watch a show. And I nervous saying that in this group here, but
It's a wonderful 38 years of your life. You won't even.
yes, it's only my entire life. But it's one of those things that I think that it could bridge the gap. It could help bring those who are diehard fans, and then help solidify those who are new. You know, kind of, and not to throw back to Star Wars, but kind of like the cartoon Rebels did with the new canon cartoons of like the new canon characters like Ezra Bridger and Kanan Jarrus, characters that you're familiar with the concept of, like the Jedi and the Rebel faction, but then connect it to Ahsoka Tano, who was a diehard, who was a fan or created in that universe. So I would like to see
And then
that.
throw in old characters like Thrawn.
Exactly. And so that's kind of what I'm looking forward with Picard, seeing faces that I'm familiar with, and then new ones as well.
We have yet to see in Picard. We have yet to see Brad Maddox, but we have seen Brad Maddox before, right, Mrs. Anthony?
Yeah, there was a Next Generation episode where Data was basically being abducted by Starfleet. He had a transfer request that Maddox was going to experiment on him and try to make more androids. And it ended up in a court case, and Picard successfully defended him that he was a sentient life form. And that's what, like at that point, Data was a commissioned officer, but he hadn't really begun to explore his human side. And those kind of the things that made him a unique person. And that this is the start of where we start to see that And now that he's cropping back up in the Picard episodes, it just makes me think that this guy somehow still was like in the background stalking Data and like trying to learn and recreate him. And it feels very mad scientist-y. Like, I feel like this guy's a complete creep that made these girls, and he modeled them after a painting that Data had painted. It's very strange. And I feel like we're going to see him in a very creepy way soon.
Yeah, they actually even mentioned the mad scientist-y aspect in that. Somewhere about halfway through the episode, they're like, yeah, people who are like this, that mad scientists feel like they go rogue or something to that effect. I can't remember what exactly was said, but it brought it up.
He said they get secret planning at one point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you recall any of that, or is am I just do I just have an encyclopedia here, Neil?
I don't recall the episode. It's weird actually that obviously we had the because the court case was about whether he was Starfleet property or whether he was a sentient being.
Yeah.
Right.
And because that episode, I had a flashback to that episode when I first watched Ted 2, which is a Seth MacFarlane creation. Because obviously in Ted 2, it's all about, is Ted his own person or is he property? And I think that was, Seth MacFarlane, digging into his, I could use that from Star Trek. I could use that storyline from Star Trek in my new movie. Yeah, that's a good one. That, but I do vaguely remember the episode, but I couldn't recall the episode off the top of my mind. I remember the premise of the episode, and the premise of the episode was Starfleet was saying that Data, regardless of his commission, was Starfleet property, and that they could do with him as they please. And obviously Picard was arguing that that he was a for all intents and purposes a sentient being with the rights of any other citizen within Starfleet, and that if he wanted to give permission to Starfleet to do it, then because I think at one point during the episode that Data was like, but wouldn't it be a good thing if if more people, if other people like me could exist? I'm sure there was something along that. So even Data was fighting. Even Data was fighting over whether he would want. He was saying, this could potentially be a good idea. Maybe we should let Captain. Maybe we should let Starfleet do this to me.
At the very end, one of the things that he mentions is that once Maddox perfected his technique, that Data was very interested. Like you saying that reminded me of how it ended. Yeah. He was interested in what Maddox was doing, and he was interested in the implications for Starfleet, but he was also protective of himself. So it's maybe it was not as stalkery as I'm picturing. Maybe Maddox actually had his support for a while there.
He's gonna
have a secret base or a secret ship somewhere, isn't he?
Maddox is gonna turn out to be Data, and it's gonna be a whole thing.
Oh jeez!
Oh,
no, don't start that.
You need to wear your tinfoil hat to be saying stuff like that, mate.
All of them have to look like Dr. Soon. So
there we go.
Tinfoil hat.
I've always got it close by.
All right. So after that, we get a Romulan Commodore calling in Lieutenant Rizzo, and then it cuts off to back to the Borg cube. By the way, did you guys notice that it's 5,843 days without an assimilation?
Yes, I did.
I didn't.
Yeah, I saw that.
I laughed at that.
And immediately after that, did he not state another number that was like 9,000? So I feel like they've been doing this for a while, and they had an accident.
Yeah, that is true. They must have had an accident somewhere in there. Maybe we'll get another background story to that. After they cut back to the Borg cube, they called the Borg the Nameless. the Romulans that are on the ship. And I don't know what space language, it might have been Romulan, but Soj basically says, "You are now free, my friend," to a Borg that it was being disassembled.
I mean, I do have one theory regarding this, and that theory is that she has been activated, and that the positronic part of her brain knows the species that she's talking to, and she's speaking to that species in its language, in its native tongue. But
I'm right there with you, Neil. I think that this might be one of those unintended trigger moments where she might not realize that she's speaking that language. But does that make sense?
She's unaware that she's doing it. Yep. She thinks that she's speaking her tongue, but because she's looking at a species and she knows the language of that species, we're hearing what she's really saying, and nobody else is hearing it. Yeah. It's one of those, like when people say, "Can you put your fingers in your ears in the back seat so I can't hear you?" I mean, obviously you would still hear them. But for the purpose of the narrative,
it's like when I speak parcel tongue. I don't mean to do it.
So I think, I think that she's kind of active, and that by simply, her positronic brain registered the species, knows what the language of that species is, and spoke to them in that species' native tongue. So,
along those lines. Being active or being not active. When we first met her sister, Daj, she just appeared like a normal young woman, and then it was like a very abrupt activation where she was blindfolded and suddenly was doing stuff and very much freaking out, not knowing how she knew Picard, how she knew how to fight off her attackers. So that made me wonder, especially when he was talking to the doctor and having tea, where they're asking, like, what do they want? They were saying that they have a background for about 3 years, and what's their purpose? Do they even know what their purpose is? Are they being driven towards some objective and they don't know, like they're going to school and they don't realize that they're going to school for a reason? Or is she on the Borg cube for a conscious reason? Like, does she know why she's there?
I think that there's a yes and no to that. I think that we'll find. I think they have their own reasons, as they will explain later on. But I think there's definitely a subconscious motive that's driving these. That was driving Daj and now this other Sergey? Soji. Okay. I was like, Sergey, that's an interesting name for Sergey.
That's an interesting choice, Picard.
Right. So Sergey, it would be I did I say it wrong again? Sergey?
We'll call her Sergey from now on.
I like Surge because it reminds me of that drink from the 90s. That was essentially, anyways. So, like, I think there's definitely a motive that they have, and it's probably going to be similar in I don't know, in function. Like they're doing something that is similar to their ultimate goal, but their ultimate goal is going to be so out there that it'll blow their mind when they figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I like that concept, and I agree with you, Christy. I think that's what we're going to be seeing. Yeah. How it plays out, I don't know.
Well, one gets accepted to the Daystrom Institute, which is the leading edge of engineering. Well, Android stuff got knocked down.
It's MIT of Starfleet.
Yeah, basically Starfleet MIT, and the other one is on a Borg cube, which has tons of technology they don't understand yet. So I feel like maybe they're they're going to end up that they're looking for something that is going to make their evolution possible on a grand scale. And maybe they're sleeper agents from Maddox, or maybe he isn't in control and this is something built in them by virtue of their connection to Data. Maybe they're going to find Data.
Maybe.
When
awesome.
Data turns out to be Maddox.
All right.
Oh.
I'm gonna.
I found the message that I sent to you, Paul.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had it up here. I've had it up here for a little bit. Basically, Neil was fuming the entire time. For the rest of the night, it was just fuming, still fuming.
Oh.
I'm gonna skip over one of the parts here because I want to just focus on the storyline advancing with Picard, and then we'll go back to the Romulan Commodore. But when Picard decided to call Raffi, who is this new character.
Yes.
Yeah. Christy turned to me, asked who Raffi was. I think I told her that I think it's the guy who sang Banana Phone. Yeah, and I was right, but she still hit me.
That's true.
So we get Raffi. We find out that apparently she's run with Picard in the past. Maybe we'll get some of these in these short treks that we also get on CBS All Access. But she's intrigued after he tells them that there are moles for the Romulans on Earth and he needs some help. And then she invites him into his house with the, what was it, 86 wine?
Yes, because he had booze.
Because he had the booze.
Chateau Neuf de Pape.
Yeah. I mean, good booze and some gossip about Romulans gets you pretty much anywhere, right? So
do you think, what are your thoughts on this Raffi character right away, Christy?
She looked really familiar. She looks like somebody that we would have come across, but she's not in Star Trek canon anywhere. All I've heard about her is that she has adventures with Picard sometime between Next Generation and Picard. So really, she's a mystery to me. She's reminding me a lot of some of the junk traders that we come across in Star Wars, though. Like she's kind of secluded, living by herself. Like I feel like she could be in Picard or Mandalorian at this point.
Will she give you 1/4 portion?
Maybe.
Okay. All right, Neil. What did you think about Raffi from the little we got of her?
Crew number one.
Crew number one.
Let's hope she's not a red shirt.
Thad?
I'm interested. She seems tough. She seems capable. I don't know. She clearly has a vendetta against the what's their faces, the Romulans, pointy ear guys.
Well, there's also Vulcans who are pointy ears.
Okay, the other pointy ear.
There's
Bob
also
pointy
Legolas.
ears.
He has pointy ears.
That's wrong.
That's
wrong,
true.
Wrong
Wrong
franchise?
fandom.
Dang it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
But she looks very capable, and like as she comes out and like at her little cabin, there's like I pulled up a picture. There's like shells everywhere.
Are you spoiling things again for yourself?
I don't know.
I think
Genuinely,
you are. We haven't seen that episode yet. We have not seen the interior of her place.
No. This is when she comes out on. We've seen the outside of her place.
Oh, okay.
And so this is when she comes up on the outside.
Desert. Like
She
has like
Yeah.
planters and things everywhere. Maybe
Yeah,
she's
I mean-
like an engineer.
I could see that.
Yeah.
She's definitely.
Those vibes.
But like the fact she's got that blaster ready, right?
Mhm.
And she's like, get away, There's some beef between her and Picard, clearly. It may not be bad necessarily, but like you guys said, there's definitely history there. I'm curious to see who she is. But
Wouldn't it be great if her backstory ended up being like she was some fresh-faced ensign straight out of Starfleet, gets assigned to Picard's ship, stuff goes down, she loses her commission, and ends up living on the fringes of society. And
Are you spoiling yourself?
no, I'm just saying,
Okay.
like, I could see that being a thing.
I like where this is going. I would say that she and Data hook up, and the children are clearly their offspring, and the daughter image. I don't know. I think there's a whole lot there that could be.
Do you have a transparent PNG tinfoil hat to put on top of Thaddeus again, there, Neil? You're controlling the images here. There we go. There we go. So
I think there's a lot possible. That's all I'm saying, and I don't know, but she does look like someone who's capable.
So we'll get back on track here with essentially the finale of the episode. We get the Commodore, the Romulan Commodore. Try saying that 5 times fast. The Romulan Commodore. Okay, congratulations. Okay. Summons this Lieutenant Rizos, who looks human, and they start talking about the entire Zat Vash and the fact that Picard is after Maddox, yet that wasn't all said to Admiral Kirsten Clancy, I think it was. But they basically come out and pretty much out themselves to the viewer as the true bad guys behind it all, because it seems that this Romulan Commodore was the one who ordered the hit on Daj.
Yeah.
So,
is she Romulan?
They erased everything except for a little bit of reflection in security tapes, is what it seemed like.
Yeah.
And what was your question, Niv?
Are we sure that this Commodore's a Romulan?
Yeah.
She has the pointy ears.
Well, no, all right, now I'm really confused. I thought she was a Vulcan. The reason why I thought she was a Vulcan was because the Romulan Empire was expelled from Federation, because if the Federation didn't expel the Romulans, 16 other civilizations were going to leave the Federation.
Yeah, I'm looking up.
It's not overtly stated.
Commodore O is the name of the character, apparently. Yeah. So I'm gonna do. Commodore O.
But yeah, so, during the discussion between the Admiral and Picard, I'm sure there was the discussion about, basically after the after the Mars incident, the Romulans were expelled from the Federation, because if the Romulans weren't expelled, 16 other civilizations would have left the Federation, and because of the, it was 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. The Federation required the 16 civilizations more than the Romulan Empire.
Right.
All right. So according to this ScreenRant.com article, Commander O appears to be the ranking Zat Vash officer in Starfleet. She seems to have concealed her true identity by pretending to be a Vulcan, taking advantage of the Romulans' ancestry.
Right. Okay.
So, that's courtesy. That line is courtesy of Thomas Bacon's article on the Romulan moles on ScreenRant.com. There's your credit, Thomas.
So she is a Romulan, because we know she's a Romulan, but she's playing the Vulcan role so that she can pass off as a Starfleet. Well, so that she can legitimately be a Starfleet officer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's being shady, but when she was talking to the Admiral, she said if there was Romulan activity, she would know. So, it's...
I just assumed that she was a Vulcan because she was so, calm and cold and unemotional and calculated, and
But she definitely gets pretty heated when she's talking to her.
Oh yeah, she does.
That was
the
a very
Romulan
big catch.
emotions come out.
I just assumed she was Romulan.
Yeah. So Memory
She's
Alpha.
ambassador.
Yeah, Memory Alpha, who I've always loved, Memory Alpha, and I trust it as well, does say that she is posing as a Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which
does
makes
also
sense
say her
based on the
species is-
conversation that happened earlier on in the episode about the Romulans being expelled from Starfleet shortly after the Mars incident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we have we definitely have these we have these players, and it turns out apparently Lieutenant Rizzo and once again that's the problem, Narek. That's the problem I'm having with this series, is that we're not really introduced to the names of these people being said out loud multiple times. I'm having to look at the captions as I'm watching the show to see it, to understand who's who.
Yeah, that's something that I'm struggling with too, because like without what I'll do is I'll watch one way through, and then I'll listen to it again a second time to kind of pick up anything that I'm missing, and I'm not hearing names. And I just don't feel like I know the people. Like I know what they look like. I know their passions. I kind of know their backstory, but I don't know their names.
I don't know any name.
Backstory. Sorry, Neil. We only know their backstory because of how they look.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's true.
Right now, you don't know somebody coming on screen. Is this the only time you're ever going to see them, or are they a major player? You don't know who.
Yeah.
All of it's not like a bridge crew where you realize the people who are standing around walking back and forth are extras, and the people sitting at the consoles are the ones that are going to have lines, and you need to know them. You're in so many different locations and meeting so many people all at once that you don't know who's going to be important.
That's what I'm kind of waiting for. I'm kind of waiting and hoping that once the crew ensemble is put together, that we start having they start having some adventures and doing stuff as a crew, and that's kind of where I'm kind of hoping that it gets to that stage fast.
Yeah.
I think that
we go on some adventures until we hook the two storylines up.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think that's what we'll probably start seeing in the next episode. Or what I hope we'll start seeing in the next episode.
So I'm looking at Star Trek Picard on Wikipedia, and so far I see 5. I see 5 episodes that are apparently confirmed, and all 3 of the first episodes are by Hanel Culpepper. Then 4 and 5 are by Riker, which
Jonathan
she's
Frakes.
excited about.
I'm so excited.
So 4 and 5 will be by Riker, but 1, 2, and 3 are all by the same person, and I think that's where we're going to get. We should get a conclusion, we hope, at the end of this episode to maybe go into your episodic adventures of Picard. Neil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Picard, the next.
Yay!
So, with this all being said, we should definitely wrap this up and hope for a great conclusion of this trilogy, maybe, if you will. Coming up on episode 3. At the very, I totally missed the thing. At the very end, we do find out that, as I mentioned, Narek and Lieutenant Rizzo are brother and sister. And then they know that she is the android. They know this. So
Yeah.
what comes of that? That's where we are left off at this week. We'll start with Christy here, and out of 5 warp cores, how many warp cores do you give this episode of Picard? And before you do, how many warp cores do you give episode 1, since you weren't here for that one?
Episode 1, I give 4 warp cores. It was action-packed. It really drew me into the world and made me root for Picard. And I really I was gonna get behind this series no matter what, just because of all of the series, Next Generation is one of my very favorites. So it was an easy transition for me, but I liked being just dropped into a story and kind of swept along. So episode 1 did that for me. It was a good ride for me. This one, it has to take me back a little, and like I feel like we're playing catch up. That 1 was just kind of like so far out there that now they're going to go back and do a little exposition, catch us up on the story, and try to introduce us to why people are acting the way they are. So I'm going to go with 3 for this episode. A little bit more explaining than the first episode had, a little bit slower pace.
All right, Neil?
It loses 1 for the F-bomb, and it loses 1 for the TVMA. So it loses one for profanity, and it loses 1 for the TVMA. So 3 out of 5.
Okay, so it was you think this was a perfect episode with the exception of the fact that it was TVMA and the F-bomb.
It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad. So I'm not saying it was a perfect Star Wars episode minus the TVMA and minus the profanity, but it wasn't bad. I'm not saying it's awful and that it's bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
Okay, different doesn't always equate to bad. There needs to be lots of, I had problems with, like all of the plot holes in the first episode, which is why I gave that 3 out of 5. So in this episode, certain things were explained. Not everything, but certain things were explained. So I can appreciate the fact that, the story is moving along, albeit slowly. But, my irks are the mature rating of the program. I think it's they're making it for too mature. They're making it out for too mature, and the profanity is bloody unnecessary. So
I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm. But we'll see where it goes.
For me, it was a forgettable episode. I had to watch it twice for me to be able to realize what I saw. I saw everything the first time, but it was certainly not a memorable episode for me. It was a tough watch. I agree the F-bombs were unnecessary. I would like to see this show in syndication later on once all of the times that that's been available happens. Maybe by then they'll allow F-bombs on network television, or they'll dub over it or whatnot. I was not a fan of this episode, but I'm not giving up on the series just because of 1 episode. This gets a 2.5 warp cores for me. Thaddeus, wrap us up and sign us out.
So I'm giving it a 3 simply because 3 is my medium. It's my right there in the middle. It's not a 5. It's not a 1. It's a straightforward episode. It has beginning, middle, end. It continues some of that character development from those characters that I don't know personally just yet. Yes, Paul?
It didn't have an end for me. This episode didn't have an end.
Okay. Well, to me, it felt not concluded, but it continued that episodic motion. Not in the sense that it is one off an entire storyline like we've seen in, like, from what I gather from the other Star Trek series have been. This is what I've come to expect from my television shows, right? And it's got a major storyline. There's some subplots going on there. This is the first season, so it's introducing it's shotgunning all of that information up front. And so a lot of that doesn't bother me, and I feel like I can gloss over it. I can think, oh, well, I can forgive that. But like you, Paul, it was a fairly forgettable episode. I didn't learn a bunch of new stuff necessarily about the story, but the characters all moved forward. They took a step forward towards their ultimate goal, or what I believe their ultimate goal is or will be. And so, I don't know, like I liked it, but no more than I would just an average episode. You know, this is not one that I would go back and rewatch more than the twice that I've already rewatched it. But it's not bad, but it's not phenomenal. But I liked it. I did. And so for me, a 3 is not a bad score. It's just that median score right there in the middle. There were things I liked about it. The F-bomb didn't bother me as much because, again, that's what I'm coming to become used to with my streaming services. But I can see Neil's point of view for sure. But I don't know. That's just where I am. So I give it a 3, and I think based on everything, we're a little higher than a 3, right? Christy, what was yours again?
Mine was a 3 as well.
So
we're averaging 3.
Right there. My math sucks. So yeah, that's a 3. So do you want me to sign us out already?
Yep. Give us a sign out. Be nice to each other, damn it.
Yep. Be nice to each other, damn it. And we will be join us next week on Sunday, correct?
Yep. Sunday at 10. Sunday 10 Central.
As we jump back to our regular time for the next installment of Talking Picard. This has been Thaddeus from Going Nerdy, Neil and Paul from the Escape Pod Cast, plus our special guest appearance, Mrs. Paul Anthony, the incomparable Christy. And for all of us here at Talking Picard, smile and stay nerdy.
Push the button, Nev.
Push the button, Nev. Push the button.
Ta-ta.